Welcome to Beyond Your Job, the podcast where we talk about work, life, balance, and everything in between. I'm your host, Iris Clapper, a former attorney and writer with a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. I'm also a certified professional coach and consultant. So while that's a mouthful, the takeaway is that I'm fascinated by the psychology of work and its impact on how we live. This podcast was born from something I kept seeing in my clients, in my friends, and definitely in myself. You can be thriving in your career, but if you're burning out, it doesn't just stay at work. It permeates home life, marriage, relationships, and of course your emotional and physical well-being. During each episode, I sit down with professionals from diverse industries to gain insight, inspiration, and a few laughs while having honest, thoughtful conversations where everything is fair game as long as they're up for it. Joining me today is Drew Evans, who earned his undergraduate degree in physics from Haverford College, where his research focused on the groundbreaking detection of gravitational waves by LIGO. Don't worry, I'm not going to make him explain that. As part of that work, he created the Gravitational Wave Calculator website, gravcalc.org. Before becoming an attorney, he taught high school physics, developing a talent for making complex scientific concepts easy to understand. He later earned his law degree from Tulane University, where he represented clients in the juvenile clinic. A lifelong mock trial competitor and coach, Drew has spent more than a decade mentoring advocates. He earned numerous individual awards and competed at national competitions at each level. He also co-hosted the podcast Mock Review by Ben and Drew, where he shared practical advocacy strategies with aspiring litigators. Today, Drew is an attorney at Kilpatrick Townsend, an Am Law 100 firm and one of the top intellectual property firms in the country, where he represents clients in high-stakes patent litigation matters before federal courts and specialized tribunals like the USPTO and International Trade Commission. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes. Today shall be construed as creating an attorney-client relationship. You should always seek your own advice. And speaking of relationships, Drew is engaged to my daughter Maya, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you here with me today.
I'm thrilled to be on it. I'm honored to be asked.
You've had an amazing journey, and of course I am slightly biased and also at an advantage because I know the backstory. But can you share a little bit with our listeners? Did you always want to be an attorney? Because it sounds like you were heavily invested in physics and all that stuff that I don't understand and even went on to teach.
Yeah, I think that you make it sound a lot better than it felt like going through it all. It didn't feel as exciting as you made it sound.
I doubt it.
It's funny that you ask. I really didn't want to be a lawyer when I was in college. I mean, when I was in high school and in college, I really fell in love with mock trial. It was one of my favorite hobbies and extracurricular activities, but it never clicked for me like, oh, this is going to be a career. I think it was somewhere between my junior and senior year that I was like, wow, I'm really good at this. I really like doing it. Maybe I should think about actually doing this for my career. And at that point, I didn't want to go straight into law school because I still had a lot of doubts. And so I really also enjoyed physics, and I knew that I didn't want to do physics research anymore. I think that basically if you're going to have a physics degree, your options are go get a PhD, go get a master's, go get some higher degree and do research, or you could go private and sort of weasel your way into an engineering position, or you can go and teach. And of those three options, I thought teaching sounded the most desirable. But even then, I was still not really thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought, I really like the law. I'm really good at this mock trial thing. But the moment that really clicked for me was when I was teaching and I was actually coaching a mock trial team at the high school that I taught at. And while I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I didn't realize how much I missed this. And as much as I enjoyed the teaching side, I was like, what I really enjoyed was teaching the mock trial side. And I was like, okay, maybe that's where my real passion is, and I should maybe consider going to law school. And the rest you can gather from there.
So that was an aha moment for you.
For sure. I think it was my first year teaching, and I had sort of known, I was like, okay, do I want to go to law school? I was thinking about it, and I had a moment where I was in the room teaching my mock trial team and working with them, and I just had this, eureka, whatever you want to call it, of realization that, okay, this is what I want to do. I love the law. I find it so fascinating and interesting. I want to do this for the rest of my life.
And what was the transition like? Because you went from student to teacher to student again.
I think that everyone has their own path, but I think that that was really the best version for me to be the best law student and now lawyer that I could become. And for me, when I think about when I was in college, I approached school very differently than how I did in law school. And I think those 2 years teaching made a lot of difference. The first difference was that I felt like I was sort of opting into this. I think that a lot of young people of my generation, sort of college becomes a given, not really much of a choice. It's not something where, oh, I'll either go to law school or something else. It's sort of, that is the path that has been carved for you. Of course you're going to go to college. And not commenting either way whether that's good or bad, but I just think that I didn't feel a lot of autonomy in making that decision. Whereas for law school, I'm making the decision to forego a salary, to forego a secure job, and opt into going back to school. And so that was a very different choice that I was actually making that I think really helped me to focus in and helped me to approach it more like a job and say to myself, I'm investing in myself right now, and I really want to take that seriously. I also think that teaching allowed me to see what the teacher sees and understand the value in asking even the dumb, I have no idea what's going on questions. And I think that so frequently as a student, you're so worried about what that teacher thinks of you, even if it doesn't matter. I mean, for those that don't know, in law school, all of your grading is anonymous. That teacher could think you're the dumbest kid in the class, and when they get your paper to grade or your final exam, they have no idea who you are. They might give you an A and be like, oh my gosh, that was that Drew kid? How did he do? They have no idea. But we're all human. I think a lot of us still care about what that teacher thinks of us, and so we're very hesitant sometimes to ask I have no idea what's going on question, or maybe it's your peers, who knows, but whatever it is, what I've learned from teaching is that those questions are often the most valuable, the most helpful, and often the most appreciated by teachers, because from the teaching perspective, you just don't always know what's clicking. One of the biggest challenges I faced was there were concepts that for me, I was like, oh, this is really obvious, makes total sense to me. And I would have a kid that's like, no, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it at all. And trying to figure out how to explain something that makes intuitive sense to you to someone who it does not make intuitive sense to is actually really, really difficult. I mean, if you ever try explaining to someone why an apple falls out of a tree, and obviously that's a physics concept, gravity, but you're sort of it does because of course it does. That makes sense to our brains that that's what happens. And I could give you the whole physics explanation for why that happens, but on some level we all intuitively understand it, and if someone doesn't, you're like, I don't know how to explain it to you. That's just the way it works. So learning how to explain that to people was a huge skill that I think I developed, but realizing that sometimes the teacher doesn't realize that no one is understanding what they're saying, and having someone be able to say, hey, Professor Clapper, I don't follow this at all. Can you just try explaining that again? That is sometimes the most valuable thing that could be asked in a classroom. And I think I didn't appreciate that until I had been a teacher. And so I think that between both the change in perspective of me choosing to go to law school and then the change in perspective of me having been a teacher, I think really played a large role in what I view as a successful law school and attorney career so far. But I think that really just helped me to reorient how I viewed things in the classroom setting.
Did you have a moment during your first year, or maybe it was later in law school, where you knew that you had made the right decision for you? I know that so many first years and even third years, myself included, question whether they made the right choice. So it's a bit of a loaded question. It's both this question and the follow-up, which is, do you think taking 2 years off helped?
To answer the second question first, without a doubt it helped. To answer the first question now, I think that I had a moment where, well, I'll back up for a second. a lot of people talk about how hard law school is and how difficult it is. And having had a physics background, I will just fully admit that I think the content, the information I was expected to learn was more complicated in my quantum mechanics class than it was in my contracts class. And that's not a knock against law school, but I think that I have been told this is so hard, it's so difficult. And when I got into my classes, I was like, oh, this is like, it makes a lot of sense to me. I vibe with a lot of this. Now, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of classes where I was like, that's weird, I don't really follow this, or I struggled. But I think on the whole, when I was like, oh, I really get this, I really like this, I find this really interesting, my moment that I was like, this was the right choice for me was how much I would enjoy just talking with my friends after a class about the lesson that we just had. And I think this was most common in con law just because I feel like it's the most hotly debated a lot of times, but we would have all these really interesting discussions and I would find myself so animated and enjoying it. And I was like, okay, this really feels like this is the place, this is the environment for me. And I don't say that to say that everyone has to have that experience. And I also think that people can have different paths to get to that point. But I think for me, as someone that likes to talk, as someone who's a very vocal learner who learns by talking things out with people, being in that type of environment, I really think I thrived in it and I really enjoyed it. And that showed me that this is where I was supposed to be.
And litigation was always part of your path right from the beginning because of the mock trial background?
Yeah, for sure. I think that I have a lot of friends that are transactional lawyers and my hat is off to them for what they do. I think that to me, part of the fun of being a lawyer is not necessarily the yelling at someone else, but the adversarial component to litigation where you are advocating against somebody else and you do have counter interests to them. And I think that that's, to me, the really interesting part. I took a negotiations class. I think that I enjoyed it, but I think that my passion has always been on the litigation front and hopefully the trial front. I will fully admit that being at a big firm like I am, I don't go to trial often. I haven't yet as a second year, but it's something that I hope I'll get to at some point. And I think all of us sort of agree that's the fun part for litigators.
And was big law always in the plan, or was it just part of the offers that you had and a path that was carved for you?
It was definitely not part of the plan. I think that when I was a first year, I was still pretty set on actually wanting to be a trial attorney and go be a public defender somewhere. I think that I sort of knew I wanted to do trial work, and I thought that was a better path for me to get there. But my first summer, I spent some time at a defense firm, and I realized that as much as I enjoyed trial work, I found it emotionally draining in a way that I knew wasn't going to be sustainable for me in the long run. And it was a combination of, we would have clients where they sort of fell into one of two camps for me. Either I truly, in my heart of hearts, believed that they were innocent, that they had not done, or that there was some miscarriage of justice, that like it was wrong that they were being accused of whatever they had done. And in those cases, I felt this huge weight and responsibility. Like, I need to make sure this person gets out. I need to make sure that, the law does what it's supposed to do. And that felt like a ton of pressure because someone's life is in your hands. And then the other camp, though, was defending people where I was like, wow, I think this person is a really horrible person. And while I do think they deserve a defense, I don't know that I feel like I'm putting my best foot forward. And I don't know that I'm representing this person as well as I would like to. And I think that when you feel a real person's life in your hands, or you see a real victim and what your client has allegedly done to them, there's a different weight to that. And I realized that my desire to go all in and really be invested in the outcome of the cases was really not sustainable. And so once I realized that, I knew, okay, I needed to pivot to something. And then having the physics background, everyone said, oh, have you thought about patent law? Have you looked into it? And once I did, I actually really liked the patent litigation work that I started doing my second summer. And I was like, okay, this is totally what I want to do. And I rest easy every night knowing that whether I win or lose, the couple $1 million either way for the large corporations that we represent is not changing anyone's lives the way that a guilty verdict might.
So your conscience is clear.
Definitely. I think that one other anecdote that I'll share, my first year, was I actually split it between a defense firm and a smaller firm in New Orleans. I went to law school at Tulane, as you said, and without getting into all of the details of it, we represented a lot of the like shipyards and railways and other New Orleans local type of corporations, for lack of a better word. It was a lot of cases of small individual, died of asbestos poisoning or what have you, and they are against this big corporation that employed them 20, 30 years ago, whatever. I had some really good conversations with some of the attorneys there about what it was like representing a big corporation against little old family who just lost their dad. And for me, I was like, I don't know how you do that. That seems so tough. And something that really stuck with me that a partner said was, someone needs to, and I would rather it be me, because I know that I can be respectful to them, that I can ensure that their lives, their loss, and that their pain is being properly respected, and that there are attorneys out there that are going to come after them, that are going to be, whatever. And this partner had said, I never want to be like that. Mm-hmm. And to me, I think that it was a really informative moment for me of understanding, look, you can zealously advocate for your client and still respect the other side. You don't have to make personal attacks against people that isn't going to really further anything, but it's just done to be adversarial for no other reason. And that did stick with me. I still sort of settled on, I would rather be big corporation versus another big corporation where I don't really feel like there's any screwing over the little guy that happens. But, I think that my conscience is I want to represent my clients the best way that I can, and I want to do the best job that I can for them, and less about trying to navigate the moral complexities of any individual case. Luckily, I don't think that I encounter that as much in my particular field. So.
I can really relate to that because my first job out of law school was in mass tort litigation, but on the plaintiff side. So I felt similarly that you're helping individuals in need and families that are grieving, and I eventually worked on trusts and estates, and it evolved from there. But I was always very aware in all my different roles of who I was representing and why I was doing it, and that helped me because, lawyers have sometimes a reputation and sometimes it's merited, and that just was kind of always there in the running narrative in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
What are some of the assumptions that you think people make about big law? And I ask you that because we're in the middle of summer recruiting season and I want to get a little bit into that. But what are some of the assumptions that maybe young lawyers in law school, out of law school, or even family and friends make about being in this type of job?
So, first of all, I think that there is the stereotype of big law, and then there is the reality of big law. The reality is that every firm is different. There are plenty that fall right into that stereotype, but the stereotype that I'm referring to is that you never sleep, that you are on call until 2 a.m. every night, that you're in a pen of bustling associates that are just constantly being yelled at and screamed at by attorneys that are above them, and that it's this absolute grind and a hellscape. I think that is definitely not the experience that I've had. I think that it is a pretty rare for it to be that extreme. What I think does happen still is there are immense pressures placed on you as a big law associate. There are expectations to meet hours. There are expectations to get work done quickly. There are expectations that you are really being paid at a very high level for your availability. One of the things that I learned that I really enjoy is that I have a lot of autonomy over when I want to work. And what I mean by that is if I want to come in at 10 o'clock because I had a doctor's appointment in the morning or for whatever reason, I can do that. If I want to stay up till midnight doing work, I can do that. I think that it's very much so you can create your own schedule, but you need to get the work done in a timely fashion, and you need to be available, I'm not going to say 24/7, but at most hours of the day. And I've been very fortunate that the firm that I'm at, Kilpatrick, is really good, in my view, about not bothering people at nights and on the weekend. And when they do, it is very, hey, I'm so sorry, I really need this, are you able to help with this? And it's almost always predicted. You'll almost always be told, hey, this weekend we may have something come in, I may need you to take a look at this, just if you can be around, that'd be great. And I always appreciate that level of, hey, this might be coming, versus the, you're in bed at 11 o'clock and you get a call from a partner that you weren't expecting. You're like, oh my gosh. And I say that as that's never happened to me. And I have friends that have said at other firms that they maybe haven't gotten a call at 11 o'clock, but they've gotten calls at 9, 10. And there have been times when they were thinking they're off and they find out, nope, you got another 2 hours of work to do today. And I think that that's the biggest thing that is a reality of big law, is that you sort of have to be available and you have to be able to step up when things happen. And I think that's the primary thing that they're paying you for, is your availability. I don't know that I think the picture of you're in some bullpit grinding every minute of every day is very accurate. I'm sure that there are firms out there that are more like that, but that's certainly not what I've had. And I'm very grateful, I think, to the experience that I've had so far. I think it's been very focused on developing me as an attorney. And I think that that's something that I do think is different among different firms. And for anyone that's looking at firms, it's something really worth looking at. Is the goal of their early associates, junior associates, summer associates to cull the crowd and find the cream of the crop? Or is it to develop the people that they take and make them all into great attorneys? And I think that there is a big gap there within big law between the firms that take a bunch of associates and then say, we'll find the best and the rest can go kick rocks somewhere else, or the firms where we're going to take a specific group, we're going to develop them, those are our people, and we want to invest in them so that they can invest in us. And I think that I definitely found the latter in my experience.
Which I think is wonderful. And one of the reasons I waited to ask you to come on the show is that you're so integrally involved with the summer associate program at your firm. And this episode will air right at the end of July, when you're just about either wrapping it up, making decisions. Mm-hmm. So there's so much I want to get into in terms of how you recruit, who you recruit, the summer that, even though I worked in law, I've never experienced the summer of the wining and the dining, how that looks. Do you take everyone? Do you not? Maybe not Kilpatrick necessarily, but in general, in big law, and what advice we can give to some of these young 2Ls. I mean, they've only had 2 years of law school, and now they're making a pretty big decision. I mean, no one is stuck, but it is a pretty big decision.
Let me say this. I am not a part of the hiring committee. I have no say in any of that at Kilpatrick. So for anyone out there that applies, I have no control.
Drew has no control, and he's not acting as your lawyer. This is just for informational purposes.
Definitely not. What I will say is that you mentioned that it's hard for 2Ls. That's actually too late now. The primary hiring cycle is actually among 1Ls. And essentially what happened is there used to be a body that basically regulated when firms could start recruiting their future summer associates. And that body basically said that you couldn't actually make offers in their first year of law school. There were certain exceptions and carve-outs that they had, but generally most people did not have a first-year summer associate job at a big firm. There were certain exceptions again, but most people would clerk for a judge, work for a nonprofit, work as a government employee, whatever it might be. There were very, very few jobs as 1Ls. That body unfortunately had an antitrust suit because there were a lot of mid-sized firms that weren't a part of it, they didn't have access to it. They sued, they won, that body dissolved. And the result has been that now there's no regulations on it. And so every year it gets earlier and earlier and earlier where the recruiting actually starts. And so now there are lots of firms that are actually recruiting and have their entire class set before the first semester grades have even been released.
So the summer associates are made up of first years, in other words, in those places?
So
or combination?
It's usually that you'll get an offer for both your first and your second year.
Okay.
So what'll happen is in January or February, you'll get an offer at a firm, And it'll be one of two things. Either it'll be an offer for our first and second year, or it'll be an offer just for the second year. And in that case, there are a lot of firms that will pay you however much money to not work at their firm the first year, but to promise that you're going to come the second year. And it sounds crazy, but I think that it's actually probably a kind of cool thing that it allows people to do, because then they get the ability to go try working for a nonprofit or clerking for a judge or whatever else it might be, but then they're going to have that 2L job in their back pocket, and that's sort of a recent adaptation that they've made, and they're just paying people a lot of money to sort of like take that year off. That way people that need the big law money are sort of getting it, even if they're not working at a big law firm. It has gotten really crazy and really out of hand. I think most people would agree that recruiting people before they have their first year grades is sort of insane, and what's the point of law school at that point?
I want to interrupt you just for 1 second. I actually don't understand that, and I have wondered about that, because in law school you're crazy about your grades. The grades really look different than they did for most successful undergraduates also. All of a sudden, people who were never getting B's or worse are. It's just how it is. It has nothing to do with hard work or intelligence. It's graded on this crazy curve, and it's a whole different language. But if the grades don't matter, then why do students in law school, at least first and second years, keep perseverating about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the one hand, I think that the grades still do matter. So for the most part, the firms that are offering people before they have their first year grades, they're really offering them based on the school that they attend and the interviews. Probably a right example too. A lot of these firms are going to recruit only from the top 14 law schools, and they're going to say, okay, we'll take a bunch of these kids, we'll interview a bunch of them, or we'll have them do some practice test question where they're going to get some feedback from them and evaluate and cull the crowd like that. Then they'll do their full interviews, and they'll pick them based on personality fit, and they're sort of just saying, okay, if they went to Harvard or Yale, they're probably going to be smart enough to do well here. And that's unfortunate, because it's just biasing a lot on the law school that you attended. But a lot of the schools are just pass-fail. But if you had a big law offer and then you got straight C's, they're probably going to say, wait a minute, like maybe this wasn't the right choice. That being said, that's pretty uncommon to my understanding, and a lot of it is that they will try to evaluate on whatever metrics they have, whether it's undergrad grades, whether it's just the vibes that they get from you in an interview. It really has gotten a little bit crazy and silly, to the point about why do the first years and why do law students in general act so crazy about their grades. It still definitely matters for the other 80% of firms or so that are still waiting for those first year grades. Then of course it matters. There are still plenty of firms that are waiting until after their grades get their first semester grades. There are plenty of firms that are waiting until after their first whole year of grades. I will also say that if you are in the position where you're a second year and you're desperately trying, you need to make a change, you need to try to apply to a different firm, a lot of those top firms are reluctant to take a second year that they hadn't previously interviewed. But if you're top of your class from Yale, editor of the law review, they're probably going to look at you differently than if you went to some random law school and you're bottom 20% of your class. And that's not a knock, but it's just the reality of the situation. So I think it does still matter. And then the last reason why I think that law students get stressed is because they're told to be stressed. I think that law school convinces you that this is the end-all be-all, this is the only thing that matters. And I think, going back to something I said a while ago about everyone saying law school is so hard, the revision on it that I would say is law school is so stressful. I don't think it is actually difficult material. I think it is extraordinarily stressful. And I think it is by design for a variety of reasons. They want it to be an extraordinarily stressful environment. And it is the, whether you agree or disagree, it is the pressure builds diamonds type of mentality of, if we just stress these kids out enough, then we will reveal the cream of the crop from that. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that, but I think that is the ethos of law school. And as a result, kids care about their grades because they are told that they need to care about their grades. I don't necessarily think that it is the perfect system, but I think that's the one that we have right now.
It is a very stressful environment. I think I'm going to go out on a limb, but I think that you're the only person I know who actually has said out loud and on the record, I liked law school. I have never said that. I've never said that once. I don't know anybody else who has ever said that.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe one other person I know, but really, I feel that it's rare.
Yeah.
And I think a
But
lot
can I
of the
just
things.
clarify that
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the reason why I liked law school is because I liked getting to talk about the law with my friends. That's to me what was fun about it. It's not that I was like, I mean, there were a few classes that I really enjoyed, and I would wake up and be like, oh, I'm so excited to go to this class today. But I think that there were plenty that I was bored out of my mind and that I did not enjoy, and I did not enjoy the stressful aspects of it for sure. I mean, you can ask your daughter. I definitely had nights where I was like, this is the
Yeah.
worst. What I liked about it was I'm the type of person, as I said earlier, that likes to talk things out, that likes to have that verbal learning. And I think that's the type of learner that law school really caters itself towards. It is Socratic style. They want to talk things out. It's a encouraging environment to ask questions. They're going to cold call you at times. While I don't like getting cold called, but I still think that in general that style of learning was really what I worked the best in. And so I benefited a lot from that in ways that other people wouldn't. I definitely think that there are things about law school that I would change and I think could be a lot better. But the reason why I say I enjoyed law school is because I really enjoyed those conversations and just feeling like I'm learning in a way that I really like to learn.
I think that the rates of burnout, addiction, anxiety, and depression among law students, even who didn't have any of these issues going into law school, and in the legal community are alarming. And what's alarming to me is that the American Bar Association has known about this for a very long time, but this culture is still very much embedded and very much encouraged. And I came into law school with a degree in psychology undergrad, and eventually I went back after law school for a master's in industrial psychology. And I think that that probably is one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated by the psychology of work. Specifically, I'm not a clinician, is I experienced that and I did not enjoy it. And I personally don't think that an environment needs to be punitive in order to teach you. So, pivoting a little bit around burnout in the legal profession, if you can share with the audience what work-life balance strategies look like for you. I know you have tons of hobbies and you play sports and you have tons of friends, but talk to me a little bit about.
I would say that the best way to balance it is to enjoy the lulls. And the reality is that in any big law job, whenever you're getting close to a deal signing or a filing is due or a trial's coming up, any of those big milestone things, the week before that's going to suck. It's just the reality. And your goal should not be to try to find work-life balance in that week. Your goal should be to try to find some balance the week after. Once that intense period is done, then take a little bit of a breather, try to catch up on sleep a little bit, and do all of those healthy living things that we all want to do. And the honest truth is that you just have to find a way to be able to push and pull yourself a lot of the time. I have found that I'm able to operate under very little sleep for a few days, but then I need to recover. I need to have a day or two where I really sleep in and I relax and I have a calm day. And so it's about finding that sweet spot of, okay, how long can I go? And then when I need to take a break, make sure that I get a break. And I do think that, again, my experience has been that my firm is really good about, hey, you've been, grinding, let's take a breather for a little bit. But the best way to find balance is to be able to advocate for yourself in that way and be able to say, I just closed all this stuff, or we just finished all this stuff that took a while. I need to take a breather for a little bit. I'll see you guys in a few days. And hopefully you find a place that is understanding and willing to allow that. I had a friend who was grinding for about a month on a deal, and once it was done, he said, I'm going on vacation for a week. Don't bother me. And they said, of course, enjoy your vacation. And no one bothered him for a week because they recognized that he had just been grinding. It was awful and he needed a break. And I think that you want to make sure that you're in the type of environment that allows for that. If you're in the type of place where once you have a month where you bill 240, 250 hours, they say, great, here's the next month where you're going to bill 300 hours. That's, there are people that do that. I don't know how. If they can let us know how they do that, I would love to hear it. But to me, that's a recipe for burning out, and it's not sustainable.
It is not.
I just want to say that I don't think that I'll just never have a bad week, or I'll never have a bad month. That's not really realistic to what this job is, and that's a hard pill to swallow, and it's why it's not for everyone. But it just does require you to have those long weeks and long months at times. The hope is just that they aren't always back to back to back to back, and that you can get some breaks in between. As you said, I've found that whether it's time with friends, time with family, extracurricular activities like softball, I play in a softball league, I play in a basketball league, like things like that really help to just take a mental break from work. And I'll lastly say that there are times when your work can be very just all consuming, in terms of I get home and I'm in the shower and I'm still thinking about this case, or I'm still thinking about this assignment that I have, and I'm laying in bed, staying up at night because I can't stop thinking about it. Those will happen, but I really try as much as I can to avoid that, because I think that it does become exhausting, and it's really healthy to take a break and to find a way to shut down, tell your brain, hey, we can worry about this tomorrow, and allow yourself that grace. But I mean, it happens. It's sort of unavoidable that it does. It's just about finding the ebbs and flows, in my view, and when you do have a break, to really make sure you make the most of it. Really quickly, the last thing I'll say that I think is tough about big law is that because you have those hour requirements, whenever you get sort of slow, or there's a bit of an ebb and you're sort of don't have a lot of work, there are a lot of people, and myself included in this, we get really stressed and we're worried. Oh my gosh, I don't have work. I don't have enough that I'm billing. And I think that that's what can make it feel unsustainable, is even when you're in those slow moments, you're not able to enjoy them because you're just stressed about being slow. And so trying to tell yourself that you're doing the right things, asking for work, making sure that you're putting yourself in positions to succeed, but then giving yourself the grace to say, look, if it's not there, it's not there. I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I'm going to enjoy this break, and I'm going to get ready for the next major push that I have that will come at some point in the future.
I think that that is a very hard thing for most people to do, to compartmentalize and be present. And I think that I'm hearing you say that your boundary is around intentionality. You, in the moment, tell yourself, I am done, and you're able to do that. I think it's hard for many people. I think that's the challenge. But if you can keep practicing doing that, because like you said, you have your winter sports and your summer sports, and you have friends, and you have the card game, and you have a life and family and everything else that you have going on. And if you're not intentional about being present, then it's not a boundary.
I will say, I would love to say that I'm an expert in it. I think that there are times where I wish I could just turn it off, and we definitely can't. I think it's something that we're always working on and trying to get better at, but I completely agree with you. That's definitely the goal, is to be able to say, okay, turning it off, I'm done. Most of the time, it's easier said than done, though.
Any words of advice for law students who are thinking about big law?
If you are one of the lucky few who has a bunch of big law offers, and you're sort of in that very highly sought after and desired associate, my advice to you is to find people that you really enjoy working with. And I know that's sort of obvious, but for what it's worth, the work is the work. I really don't think that the work from one firm to another is all that different. You're all writing motions, you're all going to take depositions at some point. Like, the work is the work. The difference is the people you do it with and you do it for. And finding the right mentors, finding the right people that you vibe with, it really only takes one or two people. If you find one or two people that you really connect with, that you really enjoy working with, that's all that it takes. And along those same lines, I think that it's important to have boundaries with work, but I also think that something that has really helped me is that I've become very, very close friends with a lot of my fellow associates that are my year, and we are all independently friends outside of our work at this point. And being able to have someone that really knows what you're going through, that is doing it in the trenches with you, that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can sort of workshop things with, makes all the difference in the world. Now, to your initial question of advice for law students, maybe the ones that aren't getting a million offers, my advice to you is that you have to just keep trying, and you have to trust that you being your authentic self will find the right place for you. And what I mean about that is that if you try to act like you're someone you're not, and you try to act, oh, I'm going to fit into this mold that some other firm wants me to be, you're not going to thrive in that environment. You're not going to succeed at a place where you have to constantly put on a mask and be someone different than you are. I think you're best off being your authentic self and putting that out there and finding a firm that says, yes, you, that authentic you, that's who we want to work with. Because then you get to be that person every day. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to get a job in big law. I don't think that should be everyone's goal.
Agree.
I think your goal should be to find a place that you can be your authentic self, that you can enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the people that you work with. And if you find that, whether it's at a small firm, whether it's a one-person stop shop, whatever, then you have found the place that you can thrive in the most. And I think that there are a lot of people that sort of think it's big law or bust, and I think those people are the ones that burn out the quickest because they are trying to do something that they are, probably not going to be the happiest doing just because someone has told them this is what they have to do, or this is what they've convinced themselves that they have to do for money or for whatever else. And I think that's really not sustainable in the long run, and I would encourage everyone to just trust yourself, be your authentic self when you're interviewing, when you're writing to people, whatever it might be. Don't try to put on some facade. People can see through it, and if they don't, you're going to get stuck wearing that facade every day, and I don't think anyone wants to do that.
I think that's excellent advice. And I think it also plays into a little bit what we spoke about earlier, which is the culture in law schools. Somehow there's, I don't know if it's a bias or they lean towards wanting so many of their students to go into big law. There's this culture where it's almost what's expected of you. And so if you're not doing that, it's something less than. And that's not true. That's a myth. I want that to be debunked here today. What you said really resonates. It's not for everyone. And how long do you think you can keep up the appearance of acting like someone else or doing something that you don't enjoy? For me, that was the act of being in a law firm. It was just not sustainable for me. And I was for so many years, but I wasn't enjoying the work. And that was just obvious to me that I didn't wake up in the morning with that passion. And letting that go and finding my passion and purpose, which I preach about all day long now, is a privilege in the full sense of the word. It really is a gift to yourself. So being authentic.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what's sort of unfortunate and tough is, I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably heard of the term the golden handcuffs.
Yes.
And it's really a thing in big law where people will get stuck enjoying the big law salary and the lifestyle expectations. You're making a lot of money. And if you're working enough hours, you're getting huge bonuses. And there are a lot of people that become very tied to that, and they can't get out of big law because they need that salary. And the last piece of advice I would give people is to ease yourself into those things. Everyone has their own financial path. Law school loans are serious, and people got to pay them off, and you got to take care of that how you do. But in general, I would encourage people to not, okay, I got this, high-paying big law salary. Let me go get a loft in Manhattan that's some ridiculous rent that I'm never going to be able to afford if I stop this job. Keep yourself humble. Be smart about it so that if you ever decide this isn't for me, you have that flexibility. I just think that the worst scenario you can be in is be completely stuck where the lifestyle you're living is only compatible with working a big law type of job.
Such good advice.
Then you're stuck and you're not happy. So it's not worth it. And I think that money is not everything. And my advice to everyone is to just find that sweet spot where you can enjoy what you're doing. And I will tell you that your life is a lot more fulfilling when you're enjoying what you're doing. And that's worth a lot more than a few extra dollars at the end of the week.
Amen. Such true words. Well, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to come and talk to us about all of
Of
these important
course.
topics in the middle of summer associate season. So hopefully there are some law students and summer associates out there that are struggling and maybe not feeling so alone, having some of this inside track info. But before I let you go, you know what's coming next. I like to do a
Okay.
lightning round with all of my guests.
Let's do it.
10 questions. I'm sure you've heard them on prior episodes, but here we go. Number one,
Let's do it.
introvert or extrovert?
Extrovert.
And I have had the offline conversation about me being an introvert. I know you don't believe me, but I really am.
Under no circumstances will I ever believe that. But continue preaching
You
it
are
to
wrong. You
whoever
are
will believe you.
wrong. Just because I talk to you a lot doesn't mean I'm an extrovert.
I know this is a lightning round, but just to explain something, I definitely get a lot of energy back from being alone and relaxing, but I also absolutely get energy from others. And when I'm in a room and I get to talk with people, like I talked about thriving in that environment in law school, I call myself an extrovert because I'm someone that enjoys that energizes me, that enthuses me. And I think that just because you're someone who also needs some downtime alone, I don't think that means that you're not an extrovert. That's what I disagree with your
The most I'm willing
characterization
to
of
give
yourself.
you is ambivert, which is I
Sure.
can bring it and be social. I'm not sure that I get energy off of others, but that's the most I'm
You have enough energy from yourself in social settings.
And this debate will continue. Second question. I have the advantage of knowing these answers. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl. I hate the
I know you
mornings.
do. And you told us a little bit, but elaborate. What do you do for fun?
Yeah, I mean, I still love mock trial. I still coach it at my old high school that I attended. I'm still very in touch with that community. I play softball, I play basketball. I try to play pickleball when I can. I try to be active and just have different activities. I actually really like to stay busy. I think that's something that I learned about myself is that when I have too much downtime, I end up lounging and I feel very dissatisfied with myself. So I need to keep myself active and doing something every day.
Next question is also loaded because we've been around this block about 1,000 times in our private lives. What's the last show you binge watched?
Ooh. So I'm gonna say The Bear because I that truly is what I last binge watched. But I didn't even think it was that good,
Okay.
and I was frustrated with the last season. I don't know if you've been
I
watching The
haven't.
Bear, but it definitely it's a cooking show. It's about a small restaurant that this professional
Yeah.
chef inherits his family restaurant. Anyway, very cute show. The first few seasons were great. The last few seasons were bad, and I found myself watching it just for this sake of completing it. I have this if I've started something, I need to know how it ends. And I felt myself like dragging through these episodes, being like, "Ugh, why am I even watching this right now?" So bad example, but that's the culture we're in now.
So
Where you
give
just
us
have to
quick
finish
your
it and binge it.
favorite show ever that you
Okay,
binge watched.
favorite show ever: Game of Thrones,
Okay.
The Boys, Breaking Bad definitely is up there. Better Call Saul, I think, is also really way up there for me. But I think Game of Thrones has to take it. The first few seasons of that are just, there's nothing like it on television.
Okay. Your Friends and Neighbors is your next binge.
That's on the.
What song instantly puts you in a good mood?
Um, so, Viva La Vida by Coldplay. This is a song that I don't know why, when I was a little kid, I really liked it. And it was like the first song that I ever memorized every word of it. And every time I hear it, it just sort of brings me back to that moment as a younger child.
I actually love that song. What
It's a
secret
good song.
power would you choose if you could?
There is a right answer to this, and it's telekinesis. And this is physics major coming out. But telekinesis is the ability to manipulate any and all matter. And without certain limitations on it, you can effectively do pretty much any other power. You have super strength if you can make any matter lighter. You have the ability to fly if you can make your matter lighter than air. You have the invisibility, you can make your matter translucent. I mean, if you're able to manipulate matter, you're able to manipulate the entire universe. So I would become a telekinetic for sure.
What a movie about your life.
I think that It's so hard for me to answer questions like this. There are definitely actors that I've been told look the most like me. I don't want to pretend that I know any of them well enough to know that there's a good personality fit. I would love to believe that a Matt Damon type plays me, but I don't know. That's like my cop-out answer.
That's okay.
I feel like I don't have a good answer to
That's
it.
okay. Generally speaking, do you prefer a long conversation or just a short text?
I'm a long conversation when it's warranted type of person. I think that if there's not a lot to say, there's no need to have a full conversation about it, but I think that I like to have the longer conversation with people where I can and when it makes sense. I don't need to have an hour conversation about my day.
No, not about everything.
When something's relevant.
But the few weeks that you were here, when you were studying for the bar, I definitely was a distraction because we both like that long conversation.
Well, we're yappers, so.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, my biggest pet peeve is, I want to sort of explain this a little bit, but when you're talking to someone and it's clear to you that they're not paying attention in the conversation, that bothers me. I want to feel like someone's present in the conversation with me, and this can be someone's on their phone, they're watching TV, they're gazing off into the distance, but I think that the time that it's the most acute for me is if I'm in a social setting and I'm talking to someone and I just see them looking over me, trying to find someone else. That's like, at that point, I'm like, just walk away.
I agree. I am so with you there. And there are the obvious signs, which are, I'm looking away from you on my phone, but there are also the not so subtle signs where kind of the eyes are gone and you're just being asked questions because whatever.
Filling the space until someone better comes around that they want to talk to. And I just can't.
That's just rude. That's just rude. There's a way to get out of that. Mm-hmm. So to all the people out there, all you have to say is, it was really nice speaking to you. I'm going to go grab a drink. The end. Now when I do that, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But I'm trying not to be rude.
Oh, so that's why you did it all the time.
And my last question is, right now, what's up there on your bucket list?
So, really easy answer to this. I want to go to the Great Barrier Reef. I want to go snorkel, scuba dive, whatever I'm allowed to do. I know that it is going away fast, and I need to do it soon before it becomes off limits entirely or the reef is gone. But I love that stuff. I find nature fascinating, and I want to do it before it's gone for sure.
And you're certainly an adventurous traveler. You've been to Africa, you've been to the Galapagos, you've been to all sorts of incredible places. So I have no doubt that you will make it.
You'll be on there for sure.
Can't thank you enough for being here with us today.
Happy to do it.
This is amazing. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. If you like this episode, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and share the love. You can always reach out to me through my website, ariseclappercoachingandconsulting.com.